Welcome to immigrationquestion.com, your go-to resource for U.S. immigration insights. We provide clear immigration news and information. Our platform provides a network of licensed attorneys who can answer your questions and guide you through the process. From visas to green cards, asylums to citizenships, immigrationquestion.com helps you to network with immigration attorneys so that you can move forward with confidence. Sign up today or download the app. Free registration, limited time offer. Stay tuned. We go live in 30 seconds.
Hello everyone and welcome to the special edition webinar hosted by immigrationquestion.com, a networking platform and meeting ground where immigrants, families, advocates and licensed immigration attorneys come together to understand US immigration policies and procedures better. My name is GB Situsa and I'll be your host for today's important discussion, understanding US immigration processing times and recent policy updates. Now, across the immigration system, applicants are often dealing with long wait periods, shifting adjudication trends, and policy changes that can affect how cases move through agencies such as USCIS and the Department of State, as well as immigration courts. Now, delays and procedural updates can create uncertainty for families, workers, students, and employers trying to move forward with their immigration matters. Recent policy developments have also added new layers to how individuals monitor their cases and respond to government requests or scheduling changes. Now, in many situations, applicants are trying to balance legal requirements with evolving timelines that may differ significantly depending on the type of case being filed. To help us break this down, we're honored to be joined by attorney Rehan Alimohammad, a partner at the national law firm Wong Fleming in Sugar Land, Texas. Now, he has 2 decades experience and has been recognized for his work in immigration law, legal advocacy, and public service. Attorney Ali Muhammad has also held several leadership positions within the State Bar of Texas and broader legal community. Attorney Ali Muhammad, thank you so much for joining us. We're thrilled to have you for this important discussion.
Thanks for having me.
Now, before we begin, a quick reminder to our audience, immigrationquestion.com is a public educational and networking platform. Now, the information shared today is for general informational purposes only and does not constitute any individualized legal advice. If you are joining us on Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn, or any other platform, welcome. Do share this session with anyone who may benefit from understanding or learning more about immigration processing times and policy updates. Attorney Ali Muhammad, let's get into it. What are some of the biggest factors currently contributing to immigration processing delays across different case types?
Well, I think the main thing is the priorities, right? So the government's priority is shifted, obviously, in the last year and a half. So, the priority is no longer to adjudicate cases quickly, whereas before this administration, you could get a work permit possibly within 90 days. Now they're taking about 9 months, or even longer. So it's just, it's a different decision. Used to be when you file an adjustment, automatically you're going to file for a work permit. Not so much anymore because now some of the adjustments are even faster than the work permits. Now, whether that stays or not, I don't know. But a lot of cases, you will see the processing times have jumped up a lot.
Now, are certain applications or visa categories experiencing longer wait times than others right now?
Yes, so naturalization is taking longer than, for example, adjustment of a spouse case. I'm still seeing interviews in a spouse case around 3 months, give or take. Sometimes it's a little bit longer, but usually it's around 3 months or less. Whereas naturalization could be 8, 10 months, and maybe it will get even longer later this year. So there's plenty other cases. For example, in I-130 for a spouse case, if their consular processing has jumped up and it's taking a lot longer now than it used to.
Yeah. Now, how should applicants respond when their case remains pending for beyond the normal processing times?
That's a good question. So, they've there has been a lot of change. Obviously, there used to be you know, an easier way to inquire.
Yeah.
And if you didn't get a response to an inquiry, then you could use what's called the ombudsman's office. That you know, avenue has basically shut down now. Um, and so even the processing times, if you look, it's a little bit different than it used to look. It will say now 80% of cases are done within this amount of time. And then if you go down on the processing time screen and you put in your receipt date, you can see when and if you can do an inquiry. You can do an inquiry on that. Chances are you may not get a response on that, and then you have to try to inquire again, and they're going to say that your inquiry is already pending. Um, Earlier, I had a client, check with USCIS, and they told them something different earlier this week. So, and they said they would do another inquiry. So, it's much more difficult now. We had a venue before or avenue before to be able to do what's called an SRMT inquiry, which would be directly at the local office. Um, Local office actually encouraged that, and we used to do it, and we would get, for the most part, we would get pretty good response. And if a case was pending too long, then they would fix it, or we could always go to the ombudsman, and then it could fix. Those venues are no longer open for us.
Okay. All right. Now, Attorney, what recent policy updates have had the most noticeable impact on immigration processing in recent months?
So I don't know if I could pick out the most because there's been about 200 or so policy changes in immigration, if not more now. That was the last number I saw. So we're getting policy updates and changes like every day, sometimes twice a day. Um, there has been obviously a lot of difference in stance on H-1Bs, which we'll probably talk about later, um, as well as how VAWAs and U visas are adjudicated and whether a person could be put in removal. Same time, meanwhile, we're getting court cases from the BIA, immigration court cases from the BIA, shifting the burden and changing things all the time. So it's a
Yeah.
lot.
Yeah. Now, in situations where processing delays affect work authorizations or plans, what options may be available to applicants?
Well, you can still try to do an expedite. You can do an expedite request with USCIS. That option is still open. But it's really hit or miss whether you're going to be able to expedite the case or not. In my experience, a work permit employment authorization document is probably not going to be expedited. Travel, like I said, we've had hit or miss experience on that. Sometimes, for example, I had a husband, wife, and they had the same reason to travel. It was an emergency for their company, and so we had the same documentation for both the husband and the wife. The husband's case got expedited right away, and he was able to get his travel document within a week or so. Whereas the wife, with the same documentation, because she had a position in the company, she did not get hers. And we tried again and again, and she just did not get it. Eventually, the green card was approved. But it just shows you that no matter if you have the same documentation and you do it at the same time, you could get different results.
Yeah, true. Now, how do immigration court backlogs differ from delays involving USCIS or consular processing?
Well, it's really with the courts. It's really going to depend on the particular judge who is assigned, and every judge has their own calendar. Whereas, with the consulate and with USCIS, it can be across the board as far as delays. So in immigration court, you may get a judge that doesn't have much of a docket, and you may get sped up in that courtroom. whereas in others you may wait a long time. I have cases that have hearings, that are set for 2 years from now. And so, it really will depend on the court. USCIS, I think they're more across the board, and same with the consulate, where a lot of cases are going to be, delayed.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, Attorney Ali Muhammad, looking ahead, what practical advice would you give individuals and families that are trying to manage immigration cases during periods of changing policies and extended wait times?
So I would say, number one, you have to be patient, because sometimes there's not much you can do with the processing time. We can do inquiries if possible. Um, you could try to sue the government with the writ of mandamus, but again, a lot of those things are expensive, and they may not help. Um, so be patient, number one. Number two, um, everybody is going to tell you about their case and how it's similar to yours. And they're going to say, oh, this happened to me, and my cousin, this happened to them, and my neighbor. Um, what I tell my clients and people who ask me about these stories is I hear them too. I hear stories also, but it doesn't mean their story is identical to yours. What's going to happen is you will hear a story, and I hear them too, whether it be on the news or from a friend, and they might sound a lot like yours, but one fact may be different. And maybe they're not disclosing that fact for whatever reason, or maybe they don't think it's important enough. But that one little fact could change the entire outcome of the case. So everybody's case is different. And so I would say, besides being patient, talk to an attorney, and see what they say about your case based on your facts, because it may be very different from what you heard from someone else.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you so much for those insights, Attorney.
Sure.
Now, for everyone else watching, this conversation about immigration processing times and policy updates is not meant to create alarm, but to provide perspective on how current developments may affect different types of cases. Immigration procedures can shift over time, and applicants are often navigating timelines that involve multiple agencies and changing operational priorities. If this is your first time joining us, welcome. ImmigrationQuestion.com is a networking platform where users can ask immigration related questions at no cost and engage with participating attorneys. We're also proud to share that ImmigrationQuestion.com is Triple B accredited and ISO certified. This reflects our commitment to transparency, community education, accountability, and security. Now, Attorney Ali Muhammad, based on your experience, how does a platform like immigrationquestion.com help immigrants and immigration attorneys like yourself?
Well, I mean, I think it's good because, there's a lot of information out there, but there's a lot of wrong information out there, right? So we talked about, talking to people and neighbors and things like that. But, I think it's good because it connects, person with the question with an attorney, qualified attorney who can answer it and do it based on your facts and not just, speculation.
Yeah. Thank you so much for those thoughts, Attorney. Before we move into our live Q&A, let's tackle this important question. What are some common misconceptions about immigration processing times and policy updates that you believe individuals should clarify to avoid any misunderstandings?
Well, like I said, I mean, you can look at the processing times online. They may not be accurate for your case because it says 80% of cases are processed with that, but that's just a guideline. And again, you have to be patient with your case, because what used to take a short amount of time may not take that short amount of time anymore. So, and it's really nothing that you or the attorney can do. Obviously, when you can inquire, you should, and when you have the means to, do a writ of mandamus, or anything like that, then maybe you should, depending on, the type of case it is. But that's what I would probably suggest.
All right. Thank you so much. If you've just joined us, we've been speaking with immigration attorney Rehan Alimohammad on understanding U.S. immigration processing times and recent policy updates. We're now moving into our live Q&A session. This is your opportunity to ask general questions and hear educational insights from a licensed immigration attorney. Please drop those questions in the chat or call us live at 516-703-3483, and we'll take as many questions as time permits. Ebunaliwa is asking, what are USCIS processing times? Why are USCIS processing times taking so long in 2026? And are delays getting worse?
It's again, what we spoke about earlier is the priorities of the government have shifted, right? So they're more interested in, detention and apprehension of aliens, whereas the focus is no longer on, adjudicating of other types of cases. And there are extreme vetting procedures that are in place for example, for citizenship and other cases that have increased the wait time significantly.
All right. Mateo is asking, what should I do if my USCIS case has been stuck for months with no update at all?
So again, what I would do is I would look at the processing times. It's on USCIS's website, and put in the type of case you have. You can see what the normal processing time is, and then you can scroll down on that screen and put in your receipt number, your receipt date. And then it will tell you whether you can inquire, because there's a lot of cases that take years, not months. So if it's just been a few months, depending on the type of case, it may be normal. You're not going to get an update until some action is actually taken on the application. So it could be months, and you may not hear anything after the receipt, obviously, but that's what I would do to make sure and see whether your case is within the normal processing times or whether an inquiry is even possible.
All right. Zainab is asking, how can I accurately check my immigration case processing time and know if my case is outside normal processing?
So you go to USCIS's website, and there is a link for processing times. It's on uscis.gov, and then it will have a drop down for the type of case that you have and maybe the subcategory of that case. And then you will be able to hopefully see processing times. There's a lot of cases where it does not show processing times anymore, but for the most part, it will be there, and then you can see whether it is outside or inside the processing times.
All right. Luca is asking, are there any real ways to speed up an immigration case or request expedited processing?
It really depends on the case. So there are certain cases that you can request expedited processing, and you can obviously, do an inquiry and see if that will work. You can try a congressional inquiry and see if that will work. And again, you can always try a writ of mandamus and see if that will work. So there's a bunch of different things you can do, but obviously some of those you're going to have to wait on those because, if you file the case and it's been a month, you may not have much of an argument to be able to, get something like that to work.
Okay. Namfundo is asking, how are the newest USCIS policy changes affecting asylum, green card, and citizenship applications in 2026?
So, a lot of changes with asylum, a lot of changes, or one of the, policies is extreme vetting on citizenship applications that is slowing it down significantly. You can see normal processing times now are about 10 months, whereas about a year ago it was, or more than a year ago, it was about 4 months. So you can see, how it's affected the citizenship applications. Asylum is, it feels like there's a BIA immigration court case coming down and making asylum harder every single day. There's something called pretermission, where an interview doesn't even have to take place. A court hearing doesn't even have to take place. And they could just deny the case saying that you did not file a complete asylum application because one thing or one response to a question says, see attached, and they don't accept that anymore. Whereas, if you have a little bit of space, you were able to say, okay, see attached, and you could attach, more detailed statement regarding that answer. That is no longer accepted under the policy of pretermission. So, there's a lot of policy changes for asylum and citizenship. For green card, not so much so far. I mean, like I said, I've seen, spouse cases still move relatively quickly. That may change. Other cases, if you're doing an I-130 and consular processing outside, those obviously have slowed down because of the priority shift. But I would say a lot of changes in asylum have made it harder. The changes in citizenship have made it take longer. Green card, it really depends on the type of green card case.
Yeah. Now, attorney, when individuals hear about changes in immigration procedures or agency operations, how should they interpret those developments in relation to ongoing cases?
So I think, like I said, if you hear it and you can apply it to your case, you may come up with a different result than what an attorney will tell you. And it's because of what I said earlier, which is one little fact in your case, no matter if you think it's important enough or not, it may be important and it may change the way the case is going to be processed or the outcome of the case. So I would probably, if you hear anything, you can always check with an immigration attorney on this website, or if you find a qualified attorney somewhere else, then you can do that. But that's what I would do to interpret and see how it affects your case, because one little fact could change the entire outcome.
True. Just to follow up on this question, does this typically affect how cases are reviewed or scheduled across the immigration system?
It does. So for example, the policy before President Trump had been, since COVID, that spouse cases usually don't need an interview anymore. And even parent cases didn't need an interview anymore. Those were waived. Now, spouse cases have to have an interview. So obviously you're adding, more time to that. Fortunately, it hasn't really slowed the spouse cases down yet. It could change any minute, but I'm still seeing interviews within about 3 months, but they didn't used to happen before President Trump. They used to waive those interviews. You're still seeing some interviews being waived, but not the spouse cases. So that's a big difference. And then obviously citizenship, we've seen the difference in the processing times because of the vetting. So.
Yeah. Thank you to everyone who joined this special edition webinar. And thank you, Attorney Alimohammad, for sharing your knowledge and practical guidance with us today.
Sure.
For everyone else, you can always visit immigrationquestion.com to ask immigration-related questions, stay informed on policy updates, and register for upcoming live events. And if you missed any part of today's important discussion with Attorney Alimohammad, the replay will be available soon on Spotify. Just search Borderless Talk by immigrationquestion.com. Until then, we look forward to seeing you on Wednesday at our next live event. Stay informed, stay prepared, and stay connected. Bye-bye.